Very good evening, friends. On behalf of the Embassy of the Royal Kingdom of the Netherlands and its Consulate in Kolkata, I have great pleasure in welcoming all of you to what promises to be an extraordinarily unique session in the company of Professor Ben Feringa, a celebrated Dutch scientist and a Nobel laureate, having been awarded the 2016 Nobel Prize in Chemistry. Together with Sir J. Fraser Stoddart and Jean-Pierre Sauvage for the design and synthesis of molecular machines. Professor Feringa, it is an absolute honor and privilege for us to have you in our city, and I want to share that our city has got 5 previous Nobel laureates, so I hope that makes you feel very much at home. Professor Feringa's work stretches into the fields of organic chemistry, material sciences, nanotechnology, and photochemistry. And I'm sure that having you in our midst is for our scientific fraternity that is here, hugely exciting. Thank you for being here. Professor Feringa is also the Jacobus van 't Hoff Distinguished Professor of Molecular Sciences at the Strating Institute of Chemistry at the University of Groningen, a charming city in northern Netherlands. And at this point in time, Greg, if you would help me with the laptop, it would be fitting to share a short video clip made by the city in his honor, which tells the story of its celebrated son.
This story is based on real-life events in Groningen. Any resemblance to real people is probably no coincidence. It's about Ben Feringa, son of a farmer, always curious, who as a young man studied chemistry at the University of Groningen and has worked there on supramolecular science ever since.
Hey, did you hear about Ben Feringa's Nobel Prize?
Of course, we got cupcakes. But how he won the Nobel Prize is beyond me.
Well, Ben discovered how you can make motors out of molecules, and he actually built a tiny car from them with his students and colleagues.
Okay, but aren't all cars made out of molecules?
Yes.
So, how come he won the Nobel Prize?
His cars are so tiny, in the future they might drive inside your body perhaps.
What? But how?
Well, Jean-Pierre Sauvage discovered how to link molecules in a chain in 1983. Then Fraser Stoddart found out how to move molecules along an axle in 1991. Ben Feringa and the people around him have been trying for years to advance the knowledge. In 1999, they built the first light-driven molecular motor. Eventually, they found out how to build tiny cars made out of only a few molecules. Small pedals of molecules are the wheels, which are on little axles, and they move using electricity. They're like four-wheel drive pedal boats.
Okay, but why?
Because nanomotors inside your body could do incredible things.
You mean like a race?
Yes, there will be a nanocar race. But there are endless possibilities.
For what? I mean, how big are they?
They are 4 nanometers, almost 20,000 times smaller than a human hair.
So they couldn't do much.
These motors are not made for heavy lifting, but for the smart stuff, like producing small actuators and tiny muscles, or power micro machines. Or they could transport medicine in your body to the exact spot required. There are so many things you could do with molecular motors.
Whoa, that's amazing.
Yes, it's amazing.
Ben Feringa received the most prestigious scientific award. Together with Sauvage and Stoddart, he was awarded the Nobel Prize for Chemistry and took it home to Groningen. Groningen, city of talent, congratulates Ben Feringa with winning the Nobel Prize.
I've seen it before, yes. It's from your city, they made it in the city, yes.
We were trying to get your permission to use this clip.
I think the city uses it.
So amongst the several awards and accolades received by Professor Feringa, which are too long to cover in this short introduction, I would like to point out that he was appointed a Knight of the Order of the Netherlands Lion by Queen Beatrix in 2008 and was promoted to Commander of the same order by King William Alexander of the Netherlands in 2016. A street has been named after him in his birthplace, all very appropriate for someone who has over 30 patents, has published over 650 peer-reviewed research papers, has been cited over 30,000 times, has an H index of in excess of 90, and has guided over 100 PhD students. Professor Feringa has been in India this time, having accepted the Dr. C.V. Raman chair, and has put himself through a blitzkrieg of speaking assignments, and we are glad that you still have the tireless energy to accept our invitation today evening, which the Dutch Embassy is honored to host. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for Professor Feringa. We welcome you with a wave of applause. The format we are going to follow today evening is called In Conversation with Professor Feringa. And the person doing that is my good friend, Ravi Kumar, who brings to the table many multifaceted talents, such as being a racing car driver, a pilot, but also a faculty at business schools and a management consultant. So this should be a very interesting conversation.
So 2019 is a landmark year in chemistry because 150 years ago, they put together, Dmitri Mendeleev put together the periodic table of elements. So thank you for gracing our city in this landmark year.
My pleasure. Yes.
And tell us about your experience as the C.V. Raman Chair Professor at the Indian Academy of Sciences.
Yes. So I have been staying here now for 10 days or so in this country. I arrived in Bangalore. I'm greatly honored to be the Raman Chair here this year. And it is a great pleasure and a great honor. I was visiting many institutes. I started in Bangalore and then I went to Kandahar in the north and the Punjab University and many institutes, Delhi. Then I was in here in this area, you know, now I'm in Kolkata. It's great to visit so many different institutes. Of course, they kept me busy. I had a very busy program. But for me as a scientist, it's great to experience all the science going on in all these institutes and universities, to talk with the young people, especially with the students. I enjoy talking with the staff, but I want to emphasize to discuss with all the young people. That made me really feel really good, because that's your future. I should emphasize that. And the Raman Chair gives the opportunity to meet so many people in this country that will that work on science, discoveries, yeah, educate the young people. I think it's a great opportunity.
Fantastic. Thank you. So, from your experience, what do you think we can do better in India to encourage scientific research?
Now, I'm not sure if I'm the person to say what you should do better. As I mentioned already, I think a lot has happened in this country, you know. You have the universities, and you have in particular all these research institutes, like the IITs and so. Today I visited here, the institute here already in Kolkata, and I was impressed by the discussions we had this afternoon, about the chemistries. I was in the chemistry department, of course. Before that, yes, I was in Kharagpur, and we had fantastic discussions, you know, with the chemists there yesterday, with the more general audience today at the symposium with the chemists. I was at IMTech, I was in IITs in several places. I think a lot has been happened in this country. But I want to emphasize, and I did that at other opportunities as well, because on Saturday morning I discussed with the science advisor of your Premier Modi. And I told him, don't forget to invest in fundamental science. There is a lot of discussion about applications, about what is the outcome of science, of your universities, your institutes, in 2-3 years from now. This is what our politicians want to hear. But we should never forget, the basis for science and education is the foundation at the universities, the institutes. You cannot build, I see here in this city, beautiful skyscrapers, beautiful buildings, yeah, the new buildings for the future. But if your foundation, the basement, is not constructed properly, you know what happens? It collapses. Please invest in the basis, the fundamental science that will make the opportunities for 10, 20 years. Because this country has tremendous opportunities. And I see all this talent. But let me make one thing very clear as a university professor. Our duty at the universities and the institutes with the young people is to train them for our future. Not for today, not for the day of tomorrow, but they will do the innovations, they will run your businesses, they will be entrepreneurs, they will lead society in 10, 20 years from now. Never forget that. So I think there is tremendous opportunities, but please don't forget also to have a strong science and education basis. Having said that, I also emphasized to the scientific advisor that there is tremendous opportunities to cooperate with industry. I think India has tremendous industry. I'm a chemist and I see all these beautiful pharmaceutical industries, you know, in this country, which is very strong. Material science, which is also particularly strong. And I think industry should strategically cooperate with universities and research institutes, respecting each other's role. I think this is important. Industry should not expect that the universities are going to develop the products. No, that's a task of industry. But when industry cooperates with academia, they gain a lot of knowledge and they can do a lot of new things, and there are a lot of new opportunities. So please respect each other's role and cooperate strategically. This is what you see in some other countries, you know, and it works out really great. And I think that is the way forward to the future.
So you worked in industry, you were with Shell.
Yes, sir.
What's the difference in approach, research in industry and research in academia?
Yeah, I worked in industry for 6.5 years at Shell, both in the Netherlands, in their big catalysis laboratory, petrochemical industry, and in the bioscience labs of Shell in the UK at that time. Of course, something has changed in industry. We should all realize that. Many of the big corporate research facilities that existed 30 years ago don't exist anymore. Industry focuses much more on their process, their products, their applications, etc. Bell Labs, as an example of a famous industrial research laboratory where they did a lot of discoveries and fundamental, that doesn't exist anymore. Now, that is the reason why I emphasize strategic cooperations with academia and research institutes. That's the way forward. So I learned a lot in industry, how to bring forward a product, a process, a research development, because industry is really good in that. Engineering, development, etc. But I think if you really want to do new discoveries and new processes for the future, you have to team up with research institutes nowadays, and I think that's very important. Of course, I learned in industry also that academic research is not always ready for industrial application.
Yeah.
Because industry knows how to bring a product forward, and you might have to adapt it. It needs several years of engineering, maybe. When you develop a new candidate for a drug, a pharmaceutical, in academia, based on a good biological process, new insights, or new chemical reactions, new products. This is a beautiful discovery. But I know now, and I can tell my students, and this is what I learned in industry, there are other parameters that are important to bring it forward to an industrial process.
Yeah.
Is it a viable process? Yeah. Is it safe? Yeah. Can you handle it? Can you build a process, or is it too expensive? Maybe you have to adapt it. There are several engineering problems. We all know that it takes a long route to go from a discovery to a product. And this is also what I share with my students, because most of my students that we train in chemistry go to industry in different jobs. And I can share this experience from industry with them.
Oh,
yes.
Thank you.
So that's a very valuable experience.
So what motivated you to go into research?
Yeah, I was of course in research. After my PhD, I went to Shell, and I worked in the big research laboratories on different aspects of research. And I had several patents there when I worked at Shell, and so that was really great.
Wow. You have patents at Shell?
Oh yes.
Great.
But then I wanted to go back to academia because I had this dream to build my own research programs, to follow my own ideas, not be the constraints of industrial application. I wanted to work more on fundamental questions. And that was the reason I went back. And I also like very much to work with students, to work with young talents, to do teaching. So that was the main reason to go back.
Can you remember any of the teachers in high school who motivated you?
Yes, of course.
What were their distinguishing features that made them stand out?
You all, I'm sure, everybody here remembers one or two teachers in school that made the difference. You also know some very bad teachers that disencouraged you. And you said, I'm never going to study that. Honestly, I had an extremely good chemistry and physics teacher. He was very encouraging. He did experiments with us. He went beyond the textbook. He put the material into the proper prospect. You can learn all this material from books, and a teacher can tell and repeat what is in the books. But if you don't get into a discussion with the students, the school kids, and put it in perspective, why do you have to learn this? Why is it nice to learn about colors, about chemical reactions, about formula, the Mendeleev periodic table that you mentioned? If you don't know why this is important, why you have to learn about atoms and molecules, the kids say, this is so dull, chemistry is not very exciting. But if you put it in perspective of why is one color yellow, yeah, and the other color red or blue, why does something smell bad and why does something smell fantastic? It's a perfume. And these are different molecules. Yeah? How is it that the plant can extract CO2, yeah, we know this is a serious problem, CO2 from the air and make sugar? And it tastes well. A good teacher can talk about the beauty of the discipline. I had also a lady who was a mathematics teacher. Now, mathematics formula for many kids are difficult and not very interesting. We all know that. This lady could talk about mathematics. We all got excited. We all wanted to solve a difficult problem. This is a good teacher, and one good teacher can make the difference. And I met my chemist. This was the reason I studied chemistry. He did with us experiments. We made colors and beautiful crystals. We got excited about this. And last year I met my chemistry teacher. He is now well in his 70s, approaching 80. And he said to me, I have one wish, that every child should have at least one excellent teacher, inspiring teacher, during his or her youth. And I think this was a great message. One inspiring teacher at least, that makes the difference.
How about that?
Invest in teachers.
Yes.
That's important for the country.
Thank you. So how do we develop your idea of the university as playground? You talk about children, you talk about future, you talk about students. This is his idea, the university as playground.
Yeah, of course.
How would you recommend we do
Of
that?
course, now people say, oh, university uses that also, because I said that. And they say, are these professors, are they children? Do they play? Sometimes we are. We play with our students like you play in the kindergarten. No, what I mean is, of course, the university should have enough freedom to play, to do discoveries, to go into an adventure. You cannot dictate every discovery. What I mean is that we have to go into this riskful, think about what is new, what are important questions in science. And these days, it's more than ever important, because people think about that inventions, discoveries come by themselves. No, it is based on fundamental discoveries. And I was asked the same question by a journalist, and you know, on television. And what I did is, I took my smartphone. Here it is. Yes, ladies and gentlemen. You all have a smartphone, eh?
I just got one.
Okay, very good. Thank you. You like your smartphone? We now have smartphones, or iPhones, as far as I know, since 12 years. Yes? You agree with me, it changed our world?
Oh yes.
The way we communicate with each other, it completely changed our world.
Change your world?
Yes? This, ladies and gentlemen, these smartphones, you know these displays, yeah, were discovered, the materials by chemists in the 50s, the early 50s of the past century. The transistors that make it possible were discovered in the late 40s of the past century. Nobody had an idea 50 years, 70 years ago that we would build a smartphone, because the word smartphone did not exist. We didn't even have computers. No, fundamental discoveries in physics and chemistry made it possible that the engineers, the material scientists, the computer scientists, all three disciplines together worked 50 years, and we could develop this. And it has changed our world completely. Let's never forget that. This is why universities should have at least playgrounds for invention, for discovery. And there is another good reason, and that is the following. Nowadays, everybody gets a tsunami of information. Eh?
Yeah.
We all agree that. Eh?
Oh yeah.
We get so much information from internet, from your smartphone, from everywhere. Some people, even politicians, say science is also an opinion. It's all about the quality of information, the quality of data. Where do we base our future on? What do we teach our children as information? The quality of thought, and the quality of information. And I think this is an important duty of our universities and our research institutes. And this will bring us forward. And this is the second important notice that I want to make tonight. Thank you so much.
So you said they think it's an opinion earlier? Okay. I have a quotation from a Nobel Prize winner in literature on opinions, George Bernard Shaw. He said that no one is entitled to an opinion. You are entitled to an informed opinion, because no one is entitled to be ignorant.
Right. Ignorance, yes. We want to go beyond ignorance.
That's
no?
right, yes.
And I don't know about his remark, but I think he is very well made, I think. Everybody can have his opinion. But I think I can have an opinion about Indian politics, but I'm not an expert in Indian politics. I know that it's a beautiful democracy, we all value that, but I'm not an expert on Indian policy. So my opinion does not count, because I'm not informed properly to have a proper opinion. I know something about chemistry. If you ask me about chemistry or material science, I can give you data and information. I can tell this is facts and this is fiction. So yes, everybody can have an opinion. But I think if you want to really judge And if you want to do something with information, better know what kind of information is valuable. An engineer should know how to build a bridge or a building, no? And he should know the rules how to construct something. Yeah? If we make new drugs, it's better to know what the effects are on toxicity on a human being, what it means, you know. If I have to build a chemical plant, it's better that I know how the chemical process runs, and not if we build the plant that it explodes or you get all kinds of toxic material. We have to train people properly, and the same holds, of course, for humanities, social affairs, or lawyers, etc. I think that is the duty of our institutes and higher education. And this is why I always emphasize, don't forget to invest in education, in teachers, and I know India is doing a great job there.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Round of applause for that. Thank you. Thank you. He's seen it all.
No, but I know this is so important. I go to elementary schools, I go to high schools to encourage teachers and students and to help them, you know, because I think it's so important for our future.
So, when you were a student, you discovered a brand new molecule which the world had never seen before.
Yes.
Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, now, you know, I already made, this was already when I was a student in my Professor Winberg's group, as a student at the university. And I was in chemistry, I was a synthetic chemist. I like to design molecules, make molecules, etc. This is typically what chemists do. I mean, chemists do measurements, chemists do theory and calculations, they engineer and it's fresh air, and I enjoy it.
And can you tell us all about the TV program in the USA which predicted your Nobel Prize in 2011?
Oh yeah.
5 years ahead?
Now, you know, people ask me,
Predictions?
people ask me, you know, did you know that you would get a Nobel Prize? And I said, look guys, I was not thinking about the Nobel Prize. I was doing research with my group. I was doing, I was teaching. I was involved in all kinds of scientific activities, working hard in the laboratory. Of course, this field, sometimes people mention, you know, this field of supramolecular chemistry, molecular machines, and so maybe might qualify. But honestly, I tell always to the young people, also during my tour in India, because they ask me, how can I get a Nobel Prize? I said, look, how do you get a gold medal at the Olympics? If you want to get a medal at the Olympics next year in Tokyo, you know what these athletes do? They get up at 5 o'clock in the morning, they train damn hard, they work very hard, train several times a day, the whole week. And if they are very talented, and they get into the competition in Tokyo, maybe they have a chance to win a medal. But then, I got a call in 2011. This was at 9:15 in the evening, on a Tuesday night, from a colleague from the United States. And he said, Ben, you were on American television last night. And I said, come on, you are joking, this is a joke, you know, you're kidding. No, he said, I'm serious, you were on prime time in The Simpsons. Come on. But then it was true. And it turned out that there was a prediction of the Nobel Prize for that year, because this was in September, this is a week or 2 weeks before the Nobel Prize now. And there was Zahn, there was Mörner, there was my name, a Japanese guy. And Mörner got the Nobel Prize in 2014, and I had to wait another 2 years. And so in The Simpsons, so the students came the next morning, of course, they had seen this, and they said, oh, this is fantastic, The Simpsons nominated you. And I said to the students, look, if the highest honor that you can get as a scientist ever, to be on primetime American television, in The Simpsons, to get nominated for a Nobel Prize, this is the best honor you can get. I don't need any medal. This is by far the best honor I can get during my whole career. And this was great. Of course, 2 years later, I got the real Nobel Prize in Stockholm.
There you go.
Fantastic.
So I have a quotation here from Ben. Making molecules is the equivalent of making music art.
Yes. This is because they interviewed my spouse, Betty, and the journalist asked her, you know, what is it to be married to to a scientist. And she said to the journalist, science is a way of living. He is not a scientist from 9 till 5. You are a scientist, yeah, all the time. So it's like being an artist or a musician. And as a scientist, you discover, you create, you use your creativity. Yeah, you want to make a new theory, a calculation. You might be doing new measurements. You might invent a new chemical reaction or a mathematical formula. Or maybe you discover a new manuscript in an old ancient Indian document about your history. I mean, it's like an art about creativity, invention, discoveries. And she said, look, he is not only a scientist from 9 till 5. You cannot stop to be a scientist in the evening. And sometimes, honestly, she said, he is in the evening reading the newspaper when we're sitting together to have a tea or a glass of wine, and he is writing molecule. And then she asked me, are you listening to me? Or are you busy with your molecules? So, you know, you are a scientist. You can wake me up for a nice molecule. I'm a chemist. In the middle of the night, don't worry.
Modesty again, he's saying nice molecules. The molecules he makes are beautiful, and to quote the poet, the thing of beauty is a joy forever. Its loveliness will never fade away. Thank you, sir.
It's a real joy. And
thank you, sir.
And thank you so much. And it is a great privilege not only to be here in this country and to be the Raman Chair, but most and above all, let me emphasize that, it's a great privilege to work every day with the brilliant young talents that will shape our future. Thank you so much.
I throw the floor open if you have any questions for Dr. Feringa.
Please ask me a question if you want.
Good evening, sir. I have seen in your one interview that you said that if there is a choice, you want to be Leonardo Da Vinci.
Leonardo Da Vinci. Now, let me make one thing clear. It would be extremely arrogant to think that I ever could be a Leonardo Da Vinci. Because Leonardo Da Vinci was a real genius. He was a painter, he was an inventor, a discoverer. He painted the Mona Lisa. I can hardly draw a flower. So don't worry. I'm not Leonardo da Vinci. But as I love history, Leonardo da Vinci, 500 years ago, he was certainly one of my great heroes. Already when I was in school, I was learning about him. I was reading books about where they told stories about him. Because he was not only a great artist, but he was also a great inventor. And think about all the things he invented. And the beautiful paintings of the details of every muscle in your body, you know, and about these machines that he made and so on. He built the first helicopter.
Yes.
It did not fly properly.
Yes.
Yeah. He made, I think, a model for a submarine. Can you imagine?
Yes.
In 1500?
The parachute.
I mean, this is the parachute. All these things. He was a great hero. And I love him and I admire this kind of heroes. Because we should never forget, we all stand on the shoulders of giants before us.
Yes, Sir Isaac Newton also said
that. Was Newton who gave us this message, and I think this is what we should value. Yes? Never forget what we learned. British have also a certain sense of humor to say certain
things. Yes.
Let's not get into that debate. I'm not British, eh?
Yes.
I cannot judge. Ask my British colleagues.
Thank you for your conversation. March, it's International Women's History Month. In the U.S., there's a lot of conversation about encouraging and supporting women in the STEM fields. What are your thoughts on encouraging and supporting women in science?
Yes, this is really important. Let me congratulate the United States because the latest Nobel Prize winner in chemistry that went to Stockholm in December was Frances Arnold for a beautiful work on the genomic adaptation, genome engineering of enzymes, which is becoming extremely important. It's biotechnology, and we use it in industry now. So she is a great role model. I know her quite well, and I was at several conferences with her also last year, and it's wonderful to discuss with her, and she is a great role model for ladies. Yes, we have to do more to encourage girls, women to go into science, but I must say there is already big development ongoing. I don't know in this country, but I talked with several ladies in different institutes, also here today, just before we came to this meeting. And so there's a lot going on. A lot has been changed already, but we could do a lot more. In our university in Holland, but in our university in particular, we have the so-called Rosalind Franklin program. Rosalind Franklin was very famous in those days for protein crystallography. She was in England. And we have a special program, but every year this program is for young assistant professors where only female can apply. And we hire outstanding female professors and we apply them, appoint them in different disciplines. In the past, maybe when I started as a student, there were hardly any female in science departments. When I started as a young student in chemistry, I think there was one female professor and one lecturer. Now in our institute, 1/4 of the professors are female already, and we hire many more young female. But it takes a while, because also you have to get the young females studying natural sciences. When you go to a medical school, I don't know how it is here and in America, but in our medical school, 60% of all the doctors to be, 60% of the students is female. Yeah? In some areas it's even more. So there's a lot of development going on. Maybe in mathematics it's a little bit, and in engineering we still have a way to go, because traditionally women don't go so much in engineering. But I think nowadays you see more and more going also in those disciplines, because there are fantastic jobs and companies also appreciate that they have women in leading positions. And I think it's really good. So we strongly stimulate that.
So that was some of the questions that I faced and thought that I should take it over. And luckily we could get it. And finally, one thing I would like to ask you about your work, that you told about molecular switches, that it goes on but it doesn't come off, and so it generated the molecular rotor. Okay, the switch will make it on and off. So what is the basic problem that it goes on the on side but it doesn't come back to the off side?
Now, yeah, I have to explain the chemistry, and
a little bit, but
I need some slides to explain that. But what we did is we built it. What we discovered is that it switches. You put in so much energy, but it cannot go back because the pathway forward turned out to be the preferred pathway. So we engineered the molecule so that it moved forward instead of backward. And that was the mechanism.
Is it the entropically prevented?
No, it's just the energy.
Just the energy.
It was the energy, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. But just a small remark then, because you had a long question. A small remark about students. Yes, when you teach students, students come with sometimes very bright questions because they are not spoiled by all the information. And they can ask you questions that you might think, wow, this is a tough question, and that sets you thinking, and that is really good. And the best thing we can do to our students is to have them ask questions, being critical, ask questions, even if the questions are simple. That might be sometimes very good questions because we don't think about that much. So I was in a high school. No, I was in an elementary school. Elementary school, because I go, after this Nobel Prize, I go to schools, to elementary school, to high schools. And I was in elementary school, and I was talking about these nanomotors and nano car, One of the boys, 10 years old or 11 years old, stood up, and he said, "Professor, you build a nano car. Are there also traffic jams?" Now, my PhD students build nano roads to move the nano car over the road, and then we will see if there are traffic jams. That would be really interesting. If there are the nano scale, 1 billionth of a meter, if we can see such an effect. This is due to a question of a 10, 11-year-old kid. Kids are sometimes the most bright questions. Let me give you one other example, if I'm allowed.
Of course, please. The floor is yours.
I was at high school. Yeah, I gave a lecture for 400 high school kids, 16, 17, 18-year-olds. Halfway during my lecture, one of the boys stood up and said, "Professor, it must be fantastic that you have this gold medal. You never have to study anymore. You never have to do an exam anymore. Isn't it great?" Then I said, "Look guys, we make smart drugs, switchable drugs, I mentioned that. To be able to talk with the cell biologists, to talk with the medical people, they have a different language than physics and chemistry. I bought the latest cell biology book, 1,200 pages, that is used by the first year students in biology, to study their language, the basic principles. So I'm back in class studying first year cell biology. Then there was absolute silence. In the break, several of the boys and girls came to me and said, "Professor, you are kidding, and this was a joke, you don't have to study it." I said, "Look guys, if you want to come further in life, things change. You have to study your whole life. You have to learn your whole life. I study again. That makes it possible that I can talk, that I can understand their language, and we can communicate, and we can make new things, new discoveries, new research, maybe progress in the medical field."
This reminds me of a quotation from the Mahatma. Live like you will die today. Learn like you will live forever.
Absolutely.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Oh, hello, nice meeting you. Nice meeting you. Thank you.
I'm so inspired. What I'm so inspired.
Yes, yes, yes. Yes, yes.